So this is being recorded. We'll post it to YouTube. And those of you who would like to see this, so you don't have to take notes and you can just absorb what we're talking about, by all means, send me an email to mike@webconnection.com and I will send you the link to the video. My name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Rosenfeld. I am a Chief Digital Officer and founder of Web Connection. Oftentimes people ask, what do you do? I'm an outsourced Chief Digital Officer, and I work with small to mid-sized organizations who have no idea how to create a winning digital strategy, whether it's their websites or their apps, social media strategies, digital marketing strategies, email marketing strategies, everything that touches the digital space. We work with those clients as an outsourced expert to create a strategy and execute against it. So that's kind of my perspective, so that when we go through these slides, you kind of know where I'm coming from. And Greg, if you could briefly introduce yourself so people have an idea of where you're coming from as well.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. And thanks everybody for joining. Really happy to be here. Thrilled at Mike's invitation for me to join in here. I'm Greg Stone. I'm a patent and general intellectual property attorney at Whiteford Taylor and Preston in Baltimore, where I serve as co-chair of our technology and intellectual property practice group. As a patent and general intellectual property attorney, basically I help my clients to wrap protection around the new products, services, and branding that they've developed and that they're now concerned are going to be ripped off in the marketplace. And so I do that by way of patent applications, trademark applications, copyright applications, seeing those through the examination process. I've been in the field for about 30 years, but one of the things that makes me a little bit unique is that I actually started in the field as an examiner at the Patent and Trademark Office. So that gives me a little bit of insight on the folks on the other side as we're trying to push through applications on our client's behalf, and then do a whole smattering, let's say, of other issues that come up in the IP field, like agreements, general intellectual property counseling, privacy and data security issues, and every now and again looking at the legal implications of new technologies that come about, which is why we're here to talk today.
Thanks, Greg. So when I was putting this together, I realized that there's some potential legal implications that people may not be aware of. And as a responsible Chief Digital Officer, I need to let my clients or people who I speak to understand what those potential consequences are. So let's dive in. Why are we all here? If you have not heard about ChatGPT and AI, then you're living under a rock. And this is just to show you just some miscellaneous articles from a bunch of different sources about it. And I don't know about you all, but I regularly have a news aggregator site, and I can't scroll more than 3 different pages without seeing another entry relating to this topic. So because of that, that's why I felt it was important to kind of get people up to speed. So I cannot underestimate how significant this technology is. I guess I would say I'm a fossil in the industry. I started my company in 1995. To put that in perspective, the technology of the day was AOL diskettes. And I'm not talking about the CD-ROMs, I'm talking about the diskettes. This is around 1995. This was a major entry to the internet space. And this was a disruptor. But in my career, there's been 5 different events that I thought have been significant shifts. So the first one was, the AOL, the CompuServes, the average person getting access to the internet. The second was around 1998, 99. I got a call from Comcast who said, hey, why don't you come on down to Philadelphia? We have a piece of technology we want to show you. And that technology was the cable modem. And they told me at the time, your kids will be playing video games with people all over the world, and you'll be able to stream video and audio files and forget about dial-up. And I was like, whoa, that's major. And that was a major shift in the space. The next one was when websites needed to be mobile optimized. That was a significant shift that happened in our space that I consider to be the third of those major changes. The fourth was tools like Joomla, Drupal, WordPress, Squarespace, the ability to empower people to create their own websites, manage their own websites, and be more empowered. And this ChatGPT and OpenAI is, in my mind, the fifth. And this is over a 28-year period of my career. So that's how big this is. So you must know, I want to tell you that probably 95% of the rest of my presentation is generated in AI and with ChatGPT or its sister product, Dolly, which I'm talking about. I'm not going to read to you. I'm just going to point out some things that you should be aware of. So in order to try to describe to people, and this is meant to be a kind of an intro level, what ChatGPT is and how it can affect and be used to grow and win from a marketing standpoint, a digital marketing standpoint. But I figured instead of me struggling to try to define what it is, I asked ChatGPT, what is ChatGPT? And this is its answer. So I think you should concentrate on this area. In simpler terms, ChatGPT is like a virtual assistant that can understand what you say, interpret it, and respond with helpful information. It can be used with a wide range of applications, including chatbots, customer service, and language translation. So that's the big piece. Down here, we talk about ChatGPT has been used by various organizations to improve their digital strategy, enhance customer experience, and drive growth. That is my goal for you today. If I leave here today and I haven't given you a couple of nuggets that you can on your own, if you choose to implement, then I would not have been successful. While we're going to be talking specifically about ChatGPT today, all of the players are making investments in their own AI platforms. All of the behemoths have partnered or should partner. They purchased, what am I saying, for billions of dollars, these third-party companies that specialize in this. And it's going to be a race to the top to see which one becomes the leader in the space. Before I continue, I think it's very important to show you this warning. And basically, it's talking about the concept of hallucinations. And what that means is just because you put something into ChatGPT doesn't mean what it spits out is right. And that's going to be very important for you all to recognize. So if you think that you're going to put something in, you're going to take it, you're not going to read it, you're not going to proofread it, and you're going to post it under your organization's name, this slide is user beware. You need to absolutely be conscious of the fact that what you put in and what comes out is not always accurate. Now, I'm now transitioning into examples. The first thing I want you to know is these cartoons that you're going to see were generated by a product called Dolly, which is owned by the same company that created ChatGPT. So basically, I put in there, do a cartoon of two people having a discussion, and this one-of-one pieces of art came out, and I used it in here. So holding true to the theme here, almost everything that I'm going to show you has been generated by artificial intelligence. What I'm about to do is go through some generic examples of how you can use ChatGPT throughout your digital marketing strategy. So the first area we're talking about is content creation. So I write a 30-second TV commercial for an outsourced chief digital officer company. That's me. And I'm not going to read this to you. I want you all to be able to read at your own pace. But this is exactly what came out from ChatGPT. Now, I also will tell you I did screenshots on purpose because I learned a long time ago not to ever do a presentation like this live and hope that there's no glitches on ChatGPT side. So I did all these in advance. But I can tell you that when I hit enter, the amount of time it took for content to start being written was 3 seconds. This whole thing took 7 seconds to generate. So you can see it talks about a narrator, it sets the scene, and it goes through the entire verbiage of this TV commercial. The next example is write a 30-second TV jingle song with chord progressions for an outsourced chief digital officer. Now, I know Greg well, and I know that he's a musician. I should have put him on the spot, asked him to bring his keyboard so he could play the G and the D and the E minor and the C chords while I sang this jingle to you, but I'm not that confident. But you can see that it's showing you chord progressions and it's showing you these lines. Now, obviously, I could go in here and I could hack it and I could say, I don't like, we got your back, or I don't like, some of these words. I can change these up, but this came out, and once again, it only took about 7 seconds. The next thing I did was write a 30-second TV jingle song in Spanish with chord progressions for an outsourced chief digital officer company, just to show that it's multilingual. You can put your command in English, get a response back in another language. The one thing that I will notice here is, for whatever reason, it did not give me the chord progressions, but it did give me the verses and the chorus and all of that as well. So if you're in a business that you have multiple languages, multilingual clients or customers, this puts you in a position to be able to get content that you can use and leverage. So that was the first section. The second section is email marketing. So what I'm starting to do is I took a look at some of the people that were going to be attending today, and I tried to use their industries as examples moving forward so that they could provide value. If for some reason I didn't use your own industry or your own company, I apologize. There's only so many slides I could do. But this one, I asked, write an email subject line, maximizing open rates, explaining to people why it is beneficial to hire a commercial mover instead of a residential mover to move offices. And this request was specific. I didn't just ask for an email subject line. I asked for an email subject line based on its intellect to be able to use phrases and words that would maximize people clicking on that in their inbox and opening it. So those two requests are really important to put together. I'm telling you this because you can really fine-tune the output that you get. So you can see the output that it gave me here. The next thing I did was, okay, you've given me a really good subject line that will maximize open rates. Can you give me a content for email? So I asked, create an email marketing content explaining the benefits for a business to use commercial moving companies to move their offices rather than residential mover. I put this in here because I know from talking to the people in this business that that's a problem, that people who are moving offices think they can get quotes from just residential movers, not knowing what the big difference is. And once again, in about 10 seconds, it provided this entire string of content. Now, once again, the recommendation would be for the expert, the owner or the marketer for the commercial moving company, would be for them to read this, proof it, and make sure that it's accurate before they do anything with it. Many of you who are attending may have seen this piece of art. While this piece of art was generated by a human, the messaging and content within it was generated by ChatGPT. The next area we can talk about from a digital strategy perspective is customer service. So many of you are familiar with chatbots. So this is Zoom's. I kind of highlighted it here. And this is clearly not a person. And they clearly only know how to answer a certain number of questions. If they don't know your question, then you're out of luck if there's not a human being behind it. Here's a client of mine who has done really well with their live chat, but they have a life. They don't work 24/7. So when the business hours are over, they have this message that basically says, we're not here. Well, the beautiful thing about ChatGPT is not only can it continue to answer questions as if it's a human, and it can answer all types of questions, even more that you don't program in, but it's also 24/7. An example I have here is create a chat between you and a prospective customer who is investigating whether they should purchase an audio and video package for their church. So I did that on purpose because someone who registered for this event is in that business. And it's basically going through a back and forth of what the prospective customer said, what the chatbot would say, and back and forth of how that would work. But there's also another way. So my client, whose site I showed you 2 slides ago, to the best of my knowledge, they don't speak multiple languages, maybe 2, 3. Do they speak every language? No. So I basically put in here, create a chat between you and a prospective customer, same exact string, but they speak German. And I asked them just to show 8 lines. So you can see the flexibility of this technology to be able to adapt itself to multiple languages. We're now going to focus on some social media strategies. I manage my own hedge fund targeted at high net worth individuals. What are the best social media platforms for me to target and why? I guess this slide's a good opportunity for me to differentiate between what this is doing versus what Google does. If someone put this into Google, the user would get back a bunch of different pages from a bunch of different resources that would try to provide advice based on this topic that someone else has written about. What this AI is doing is it's scouring all of its intelligence and all of the resources it has, and it's creating an answer based on that. So if someone put this in here, it basically says the best social media platforms to target high net worth individuals would be LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And it starts to explain why they selected each of those. LinkedIn is a great platform for connecting with other professionals in the industry. Twitter is great to stay up to date with the latest news and trends, as well as engaging potential investors. And finally, Instagram is a great platform to showcase your portfolio. So if someone were not to hire us, who knows the answer to this question, they could have used, and they wanted to do their digital strategy on their own, they could put something like this in there. They could then find out what social media platforms they should be using. But that's only one part of the puzzle. The next is, I manage my own hedge funds. What are the best days and days of the week and times of the day to target these people? Because only knowing which ones to post to is only half the problem. The next is, what are the best times and frequencies in which to do that? And this is the answer to that question. The next item I wanted to talk about is personalized recommendations. So this item is kind of interesting. I put in there because, once again, I know one of the attendees today is in this business. I am a car dealer. In 2010, I sold a customer a Jeep Grand Cherokee. In 2015, I sold them a Lincoln Navigator. Assuming they continue to spend more money on a car, what cars should I recommend for them for 2023? And this spit out an answer based upon trends, based upon the evolution of that customer, based upon the fact that they now know that they are skewed to a SUV or a mini SUV. It came back with the next level of classes to be able to focus that customer on. So that's pretty intuitive stuff. Market research and relationship management. So I put in here, create a questionnaire for a commercial office tenant who wants to move to a new office building so I can best determine the type of space for them to show them. So I'm sure everyone in this business has their own list, but they could supplement that list with the type of response that ChatGPT gives. Here's another one. I own a toxicology lab and provide testing. I received the following negative review. Now, real quick, This is not from someone who's participating here, because of course, none of my attendees would have a negative review. But I did go to one of their competitors in another market to pull something similar. So I own a toxicology lab and provide testing. I received the following negative review and would like a recommendation on the best way to respond. The review is still waiting. This is the actual review. It basically said, I'm still waiting for test results from, and this is obviously in the peak of the pandemic, at UTC in Sarasota, Florida. I have filled out a form at least 6 times, keeps saying it's still processing, not good for an essential worker. And immediately, ChatGPT gave a proposed response. And this could be good enough for someone just to copy this and paste it in their Google review as a response. So that negative, horrible 1-star response isn't just sitting there. So this is another kind of niche way in which people will use this tool. Training. Generate a role-playing exercise of how I can train my salespeople on how to get past the receptionist to the decision maker on a cold call. I don't know how many of you have ever been in sales and had to do this, but this is a challenge, and training people who are not as successful as they could be is a challenge. So I put this in here on a whim and got some of this output here. But what I thought was kind of interesting, and this goes to the hallucinations slide I showed you before, as far as the warning from Google. That's why I titled this, Yeah, Right. The next thing I said is, after the slide before, which is how do you train up my team? I said, generate a role-playing exercise with the script of a call with the salesperson and receptionist, where the salesperson is attempting to get to the decision maker. The script should be in a back and forth conversation between the salesperson and the receptionist. And you'll notice that right down here, it says, yes, I'm calling to discuss our new product offering and how it could benefit your company. And the receptionist says, all right, let me transfer you to so-and-so. Please hold on while I connect you. I don't know about you all, but that never really worked for me in 5 lines of back and forth to get to the right person when I was in the role of rolling up my sleeves and selling. So this is a year right moment where I would say to you, beware. So look, I know I went through these slides. I know I went through them quickly, and I know I went through them quickly because I know I invited you, and once again will invite you to get for me to email you this presentation so you can play and stop and pause at your own pace. But this item is really important and a good segue into what Greg's going to talk about. Because once again, as a chief digital officer, my responsibility to my clients and to people I talk to, like the people here who are not my clients, is to advise you of best practices. This stuff is brand new. This is uncharted territory. I'm very curious to hear what Greg has to say myself about, can I just copy and paste the stuff that Mike just showed me? If I didn't include Greg here and you did that and you got in trouble, I would feel really bad. So now if you do it, and it's Greg's fault, not my fault. But with that said, this whole slide is basically a warning from Google that basically says how they're handling AI content. And basically what this is saying is, if you use AI to try to fool Google, try to write content to manipulate their results, you're probably going to get messed up. You're probably going to get dinged. But if you use it for legitimate purposes to create content that is of value to the people who come to your website, your social media, your email marketing, whatever, then you're good. So that's my interpretation of what this slide is all about. So with that said, I'm going to kind of pass the torch to Greg.
Okay, Mike, and I guess I'll just give you a cue to advance slides as we go. Is that okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first, Mike, I totally agree with what you're saying. We are in brand new uncharted territory. And from the legal perspective and the legal risk of using these tools, it's kind of scary for the user, but it's exciting for the lawyers because there's going to be loads of issues that end up being litigated, being legislated, that are going to surround what you can do with AI generated content, who owns what with AI generated content, who's in trouble when they do different things with AI generated content. So the list of legal issues and legal risks that I'm going to talk about here are limited. And I really expect that we're going to see way beyond this in the legal field and the legislative field, covering the whole world of AI. But for today, really the key legal issues that are being debated right now, as this is just coming into the world, are issues of ownership and issues of infringement. So first, on the issue of ownership, it's fundamentally who owns what that comes out of the use of these tools. Options there are the company that owns the technology, in this case, the company that owns ChatGPT. Is it the originator of the content, the stuff that was used to train that AI model? Is it the user that comes in and puts in their query to have this new content generated? Is it the AI itself? All of these issues are currently being debated. And then the second big issue is this one of infringement risks. Is the user who is now coming in and forcing this creation of new content based on other people's content, are they copying or infringing on the intellectual property rights of the content originators, the folks that actually generated that data set that trained the AI tool? And kind of a side issue on the infringement side, does the user intend to block third parties from copying the content that they ultimately generate? And while you're certainly, and I'm going to get into this in more detail, but while you're certainly not going to be able to just enforce a copyright in that raw data that's generated, it might be that you plan to integrate that somehow into some bigger work. And so you're going to have to understand what are the implications of using the output from ChatGPT or other AI tools and integrating into that something that you're going to commercially deploy, because your ownership rights in that stuff could be limited by how much you're using that raw output from the AI. Okay, Mike, let's go to the next slide. So first, on this issue of who owns what, actually the European Commission asked ChatGPT that very question. Who owns the output of what you generate? And it answered the question. So that quote there is output from ChatGPT, and very HAL-like from Space Odyssey. I do not own the content that I generate. I am a machine learning model developed and owned by OpenAI, and the content generated by me is subject to OpenAI's license and terms of use. And so that's key. Here in this tool, it's OpenAI's terms of use that govern who owns what at the end. They say, we don't own the output. We're just a machine that generates that output for you as a user. So here it's possible that you own that output, but fundamentally it depends on what is embodied in that output and what third-party rights specifically are embodied in that output. And when I'm talking about the intellectual property rights that are embodied in that output, we're talking in this context generally about copyrights, most frequently, trademarks and patents. Copyrights protect any original creative works that are fixed in a tangible form. So some new article, some new writing, some new piece of art, any of that's protected by copyright. Trademarks are branding that's embodied in text or logo that's used to promote a product or service. And then patents are going to be less frequently dealt with, at least right now in this context, but sometimes they will. Patents protect inventions, new, novel, and unobvious inventions. Okay, let's pop the next one. So digging into copyrights, again, I mentioned they protect original and creative works, a writing, a piece of art, anything like that. But the US Copyright Office has already said that it will not register a copyright in something that's output from an artificial intelligence tool because it's neither original nor is it creative authorship by a human. It's not original because it's all based on this stuff that exists in the training set that you've used to generate that output. And obviously there's no human involved in that generation because it's just software generated. So because the Copyright Office won't register a copyright in that output, the user can't register a copyright in that output. If it's not registrable, it's not enforceable. It's a prerequisite to be able to sue somebody for copyright infringement that you have a copyright registration. So understand that as a user of this tool, your opportunity to block others from copying what you're using, if you're using the raw output, is very limited if it exists at all. But still, the output that's generated is doing so based on the copyright interest that other people have in the data in the training set. So it is possible that your use of that tool and pulling in maybe quotes from the data that's in the training set could infringe on somebody else's intellectual property that exists in the data in that training set. So it's just important to be aware of that issue because it gets to vetting of the content that you're using and how you're using it. Okay, next slide, Mike. The current theories on who might own the output ultimately. First, it's we the people. It's the content that's generated is all based on stuff that's already in the public domain because it's in ChatGPT's data set. So because of that, it's in the public domain. The output that's generated is in the public domain. The user doesn't own it, and instead we the people own it. We can access it at any time. Another theory is it's a derivative work of the stuff that's already in that existing data set. And so it should properly belong to the folks that generated that original data in the data set. Yet another theory is that it's the creators of the AI tool because it's their ingenuity that came up with the programming know-how to be able to generate that content in the first place. And so these theories are bouncing around both in the patent context and the copyright context to determine who owns what with regard to these tools. But the one person that's kind of out of luck, that's not in that mix, is the user themselves. There's not much yet that's been established that gives the user a right to ownership of that output. Okay, next slide, Mike. On the trademark front, while it's going to be less frequently seen than on the copyright side, understand that the data set itself is really diverse. There's a lot of stuff that's in that data set. So depending on what your query is, it might start pulling back content that you want to use that has third-party trademarks in that content. Now, there are certain fair uses of referring to other people's trademarks, but if you're using it in a way that might suggest that you have some connection to that other brand, that could be trademark infringement. So once again, it dictates you've got to very carefully vet that output that is generated. You know, like Mike said earlier, you've got to proofread it because it's not always going to be correct. Well, in addition to not only maybe being incorrect, it could in fact create risk for you of intellectual property infringement. And so you really need to be careful and vet it to make sure what is in this content and are there third-party rights that are embodied in it. Okay, next slide, Mike. Quickly then on patents. Today, our laws dictate that only a human being can be named as an inventor. And I have seen some tools that are out there that are applying AI in the patent space to help people like me, patent attorneys, write at least certain parts of patent applications. But let's say somebody comes in and for example, says to ChatGPT, invent and write a patent application for a new and better way to encrypt data you're sending through a third-party Wi-Fi network. And you give it that query and it comes up with this new subroutine for encrypting data in that particular environment, you know, using its wealth of knowledge that's in that data set. Obviously, that raises a big question of, well, who's the inventor? It can't be the AI because our patent laws say that you have to be a human. So is it the person that programmed the AI tool? Is it the person that came up with that query and had the idea of it'd be cool to have an invention in this space? Really, probably not the latter, because that person has only identified a problem, and identifying a problem is not enough to get you to that inventorship level. So this is, again, an open query as to who's going to own that output from an invention perspective of stuff that's generated by AI. And also just quickly note that there's risk of of you now putting your own concept into the public domain just by using the tool. You've asked a question to the tool, and now it's come up, the AI tool has come up with a response and answered to your question. That's now public domain information. And so that becomes prior art that could bar you from obtaining patent protection later on if you come back and try to flush out the details of that invention, a full-blown application. Okay, next slide, Mike. So just real quick, the infringement risks that are going to be faced by any user. Understand that the tool trains on third-party information. Much of that's subject to copyright protections by third parties. Use of the tool presents risk then of infringing on those third-party rights, and these issues make it critical that you vet your output. You don't just take it and post it somewhere. You vet the output and hopefully use it as your own training tool to just educate you in the field, and then become and flush out the idea more fully before you generate your own original content. And last slide, if you would, Mike.
Did I miss a slide?
No, next slide. I'm sorry. Final one. There it is. So the big challenge right now is just that it is the Wild West in this field. Our laws today don't fully address the legal issues of ownership and infringement and other issues that surround use of this tech. So it's going to take time. For now, it's good old human creativity and ingenuity, in my view, that are way more valuable. And just step carefully as you use these tools, because it can raise these legal risks, and just be aware of them.
Good. I have what I hope will be perceived by you, Greg, as a compliment. You 0.0 people left when I passed the buck to you. Sometimes I find that when we have creative discussions and creative marketing discussions, if you then shift gears into legal stuff, people will bail, but not one person did. So look, I want to thank you, because the goal today was, this is new stuff, and I am not going to pretend, and I don't want to speak for Greg, that I'm an expert in this. My job is to educate and inform of what the possibilities are and how to add to the digital strategy mix. And I was originally planning on doing this myself until I realized, Greg and I go way back, that it would be important to gain his perspective, just to make sure if you are choosing to do this on your own. Obviously, my clients, I manage this for them. If you're choosing to do this on your own, just do it with both eyes wide open, and know that this is ever evolving. So what I want to do at this point is a couple things. Remind you that if you are interested in getting a copy of this, email me at mike@webconnection.com, and I'll reply with a link to the video. And unless Greg has an objection, I will put his contact information in there as well, in case you have questions that are more skewed to his perspective on what we were just talking about. I also have a favor. I will be sending out to everyone a 2-minute survey, just to learn from this and see what was valuable and what wasn't, so that we can continue to improve how we present information like this. And I also want to say that I'm very conscious of people's times. I scheduled this from 11 to 11:45. We're at 11:44, so we did pretty good. And I specifically didn't allow people to raise their hands or ask questions for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to stay on time. The second is that it's very possible that I won't know right off the bat the answers to your questions, but I will encourage you to use this same email address if you have questions that you wish you could have asked here, but were unable to because you weren't empowered to do so. So with that, I want to thank everyone for spending the 45 minutes with us. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that you will participate in the survey so I can learn something back for you. And if you ever have any questions about digital strategy or what an outsourced chief digital officer, this is the cheesy plug, is, and how we may be able to help your organization grow, because you just don't have time to deal with this stuff, then hopefully you'll reach out. So thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Greg.
Thanks, Mike.